Hello, everyone, and welcome to another Tower of Babble podcast. As always, I am joined by Daniel D'Souza.
What's up? You didn't say your name?
Didn't I?
You just started by saying, I'm joined by Daniel D'Souza. That's Joey Mush.
Yeah, hi. I'm a little out of it today. Also, Jeremy Kozier's here via Skype.
Hello.
I guess Google Hangouts, technically.
Right.
We should be honest with everybody. Not a lot of news to talk about today. I'm going to be honest right off the top here. So we're gonna have a little bit more of a casual show. Some, maybe something we've done in the past, but we haven't done in a little while. It just kind of shoot the S a little bit,
Shoot the S.
What?
What the hell does that mean?
You never heard?
He didn't want to say the
Well-
word shit.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know why. I
This
told
show-
you I'm out of it. Should we restart?
No, we're doing
It's
it.
too
We're
late.
streaming.
It's too late. Yeah, it's too late. All right, so
Shoot the S.
shoot the S. Yeah. So here's what we're going to talk about today. In no particular order, we've got some news about Tenet. It was delayed till July 31st. There's some other fun news about that. There's a
Doesn't
Matt-
sound fun.
Mad Max Fury. It's not. There's some Mad Max Furiosa prequel news that we can kind of bandy about. There is news about Indiana Jones 5. That's the most exciting part, I think. Maybe I told you it's slim pickings, and then a little bit of news about the HBO series for The Last of Us that I think
Awesome.
is interesting. So, and then at the end, we're going to talk about the PS5 announcement and all the games that came with that, and kind of bandy that about it a little bit too. So if you're not interested in the game stuff, we'll just keep that for the end, and you can drop off there. So before we get into everything, I just remind everyone to follow us on Twitter at TowerBabblecast, Facebook.com/TowerBabblecast, and head over to our Patreon, Patreon.com/TowerBabblecast as well, where we're doing our monthly film club. Dan, what's the movie this month?
It's Close Encounters of the Third Kind.
That's exciting.
It's a classic, really old movie, but it's a good one. You haven't seen it yet, eh?
I've never seen it.
Jeremy?
What's the?
I
Jeremy
have
has
seen
seen it. Yeah. What was our movie last month?
Gravity.
Gravity. That's a really good. I really like that movie. It was unbelievably good, but also terrifying. So if you want to listen to that, that's up on our private Patreon's only RSS feed right now. Just $5 a month. You can help support the show, get some bonus content, because God knows we need some things to distract us from
Yeah.
the
It's rough out there.
the not great real world we're in. Okay, so let's jump into this. We have, like I said, Tenet, Christopher Nolan's big tentpole movie for Warner Brothers, delayed until July 31st. He's just really banking on this year he's going to get this movie out. It's coming out this
Yeah.
year, hell or high water. It's going to happen, right?
And this is the type of movie that has to be released in theaters, in IMAX theaters ideally. Like, it can't
Yeah.
be a digital release, so I don't know.
But that being said, he did do that Fortnite thing. They like
Oh, right, yeah.
he screened, I think, Inception or something like that in Fortnite. Just didn't really see it. Doesn't really fit his kind of his image, where he always talks about like needing like real big screens and all this kind of stuff, shooting on film, and then Fortnite
As a filmmaker, Christopher Nolan, I guess he's interested in new types of
Technology.
Technology, yeah, but also bringing his films to wider audiences, right? So he's already made
Right.
the movie, and it already has the integrity that he intended. So now it's just a new platform. I don't think it's that crazy.
I
It
think
is crazy. No, sorry, it is
I think
crazy.
watching a movie in Fortnite is crazy. I don't know what you're talking about. So there's that. Jeremy, what do you think about watching movies in Fortnite?
I don't know. I don't really know what it's like. I haven't watched any of the videos. I just know that
Yeah,
a lot
I
of
don't
people do
I
it,
don't know what
and
you're
there
talking
was like they do like concerts and stuff. So it just
Yeah.
seems like a new trend or norm going forward for a particular part of the audience, at least the younger one, I guess.
Right.
I mean, if that's where these people are spending their time, it kind of makes sense. Like, they have a digital life, and they can watch movies digitally with their friends. I don't know. I don't see the harm in it, really.
It's not. I would worry about movies being made for that type of
Yeah.
like viewing experience.
But
'cause
even
it's
that
just
could
not
just
my
be its own genre, right? Like,
the
yeah,
the virtually watched
Sure.
movie.
I think there's a certain type of movie that would probably do better there than in a theater, and then most major, blockbusters won't.
It's a
but-
free to watch. It's a free to play game though. So you could just log in and watch a movie for free. I guess the eyeballs are what you're looking
Right.
for. I don't know. It's it's a whole crazy new world, and the kids love the Fortnites.
The kids love the Fortnites.
So, what do you guys think of this? The delay? Does it make sense? I think to push the movie back. Tenet, that is.
Well, they don't
A little
really
bit
have much
further.
of a choice, right?
It's a kind of a chicken and egg situation, I think, because you have no theaters to play a movie in, but if the theaters were open, they would have no movies to play. So, you know,
Yeah, I mean, you have to assume that there are movies that are ready for release that just aren't able to open in theaters right now. So as soon as the theaters open, there should be a backlog of films that they can at least release.
yeah, I understand that the way it works is that, like, you have to book a weekend, right?
Right.
For the release. And like some movies have already been delayed a whole year, and they've already been like scheduled for release next summer, right? Knowing that, you know, presumably there'll be a lot larger of an audience to go see these movies, right? So if you open up and then, you know, if the studios are saying, no, I'm not releasing that, you know, even if it's ready, we're going to hold it until there's bigger crowds.
Yeah.
Then, you know, what's the point of even having these theaters open? I don't know. I don't know what the right drive-in theaters. That's the answer.
That's happening.
We just need to convert all standard theaters, just driving into up the stairs, into regular theaters. And the thing with drive-in theaters, I thought was interesting. We were talking about this yesterday because the Winnipeg airport is like doing a drive-in theater thing, which is interesting. But it's really only a 2-person experience because you kind of hard to watch.
Depends on the vehicle.
What kind of?
I think you could get, like, if you have a minivan, maybe not a full minivan, but I think other people could still enjoy it from the back seat.
I guess it depends on how far away the screen is, how
Yeah.
big it is. But like, I think if you're from the back seat, I think you can't. I don't know if you'd be able to see anything, barely anything. Jeremy, would you go to a drive-in theater?
Well, yeah, but I think you can still like get outside of the vehicle and like have a chair and like sit.
Or just sit on
And
the hood or
watch.
something.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, okay, that makes sense. But doesn't that defeat the whole
As
purpose?
Well, as long as you're, you know,
6 feet apart.
distance,
Your
Right.
vehicles have to be 6 feet apart.
Right. Okay. And I guess I understand that that outdoor transmission is not as common, or it's much less likely. So,
Yeah.
all right, fine. We can just convert all theaters to drive-ins. Let's get these movies out. I want to start talking about movies again. There's no news. I want to watch new movies. I've been waiting for Wonder Woman 1984 since they dropped the best trailer of all time.
Well, that one has a new date as well, just announced.
Did they really? What's the new date
Yeah,
for Wonder Woman?
it's in October now.
October for a
Yeah.
for a big tentpole. So I
Yeah, like basically all these dates are just placeholders
yeah.
to once we, you know, cross that bridge, you know, then they move them again if nothing opens, right? So
Yeah.
they're just, these dates are just placeholders until we know what's actually going to open up.
But if theaters are open in October, do you anticipate Wonder Woman would actually come out in October?
Yeah, like they're saving that date in anticipation that, you know, theaters will be open by then.
Because
Tenet, that one's kind of a risky one. That would be, they want to be the first movie kind of when all the movie theaters decide to open, but again, it's still so unknown. Like these dates could get changed again.
Yeah. It's weird to think about it that way because, like, a movie like Wonder Woman, like, it's been ready for so long. It's been done for like 2 years. It needs the big audience to make the money, its money back. And even if you release in October, like, it's like that's not prime movie launching time.
Well, and
you know?
and the reality is, it, like, unfortunately, it really does depend on the states primarily. Like, they're not going to release it in Canada if the states aren't ready for
Right.
theater release.
It's like we could open our theaters, but like, why would we if there's no movies coming out?
Right.
You know?
Like, we're basically in Manitoba. We're ready to open our theaters pretty soon.
I think it's not even. I think it's still a little bit further out.
Like, it hasn't been announced yet, but we're doing well in that sense, anyways. But the movies themselves won't be released until they're ready for release in the states, and that's probably much further off.
Yeah, exactly. So, I don't know what the right answer is. Because it's like someone has to be first,
No.
right? Someone has to be the first movie to open theaters. You know, I think Christopher Nolan kind of wants that to be Tenet, but I don't know if it's going to be to the kind of scale he wants it to be. You know, do you think people are going to come back? You know, when movie theaters are open, people are going to come back in you know, the same rate that they were when they were, you know, that they were doing that great before, but you know, that they were before.
I think initially
COVID.
you probably get a good resurgence, right? Like, people right now
Right.
need leisure activities. You know, there's no stadiums, there's no theaters, there's no
Yeah, no sports.
nothing of that sort, right? So once something like that does open up, I think you'll get a good influx. But I don't think that will carry over long term.
You think
But
people?
again, even though when it does open up, it's like, how does it open up? Does it go back to exactly how it was before, or
No.
does social distancing still matter? And with the seating that they have at these theaters, you have to cross by people in order to get to your seats, and you're
Yeah.
not
Well,
sitting 6 feet
here's
apart.
honestly what they'll do, because it'll be half capacity initially, right? If not
Yeah.
less. So you do every second row is closed off and every second seat is closed off, or something along those lines.
Yeah, it's just I
That's
don't know,
honestly, it
just seems so lame.
sounds great.
I don't
Sounds great.
Like I don't know what else you want to do.
Keep
Like,
people away from me in the theaters. So they're talking, their cell phones,
their
all that stuff.
loud snacks.
Yeah, exactly. Keep that all that away from me.
The Tommy Talkers and the Susie cell phone or
That's
whatever.
that's the Julian of the theater.
No
is,
way,
yeah.
man.
Yeah, Julian, you always
100%.
talk. You always talk.
No
in a
way.
movie.
Always eating snacks super loud.
I'm just chewing on popcorn like everyone else in the world.
No, you just focus on that solo experience, like you always say it is.
It is a solo watching a movie is a very solo experience. There is the crowd dynamic that comes in, when you're at, like seeing Avengers and there's cheering and stuff. That is fun. But, it's mostly a solo experience. I don't want to relitigate this
No, I
whole
agree.
debate. Okay.
Which is why you should keep your mouth shut in the theater.
What else is there to talk about? There is a couple things we can dive into here. So kind of on the tail of this kind of whole tenant thing. So the theaters are saying they expect to be open by 90% by the time July 31st rolls around. I think that is
That's an aggressive
optimistic.
deadline, yeah.
I don't even know what 90% open means. Is that 90% capacity? 90% of the theaters are open? Like, what is the screens? Like, what is that even?
Yeah, it's only showing 90% of the movies.
Yeah, like I don't know. I don't even know exactly what that means. And then AMC, we talked about for a while here, it has, quote, substantial doubt, unquote, that they can remain in business due to COVID. Biggest movie theater chain in the world.
Yep. Then this thing hit them hard. That's the way their industry is like based. It's dependent on people showing up.
They can't really survive. They can't really. I think of Cineplex as like the Canadian analog, but like I don't think they're doing as badly. Like I don't know what the numbers are, but they have the exact same model. Maybe they just weren't as cash tight as AMC was. Like I guess Cineplex has like that online store you can like rent movies from.
Yeah, I don't know much about AMC. Cineplex diversifies it a little bit. Like they own all like the Rec Room locations and stuff like that in Canada.
You need those two people.
But
those two.
again, same thing. But
yeah, I don't know. I imagine they're a little bit more. I don't know how long they can sustain that for.
Right.
I imagine you kind of need to get back into seats in the next 6 months for that company.
Yeah, within
to
the balance of the year for
sure. Okay. So we have some rumors, I guess, about the Mad Max prequel movie. So it's called Furiosa. I think we've talked about it before. I think it's just an idea that was mentioned by the director. So no Charlize Theron because apparently it's like set quite a while.
So it's like a younger
Furiosa. Yeah. I guess you could. Why couldn't we just use digital de-aging technology like Marvel does?
I think like if that's going to be the main character, they would want a tangible actor in the role.
Yeah, like Charlize Theron.
Yeah,
she's only like one of the biggest movie stars in the world. The script was written before Fury Road, which I think is pretty cool.
It's interesting.
There's no Mad Max in it, so Tom Hardy wouldn't appear.
Right.
The DP, so the cinematographer from Fury Road, would return. I think that's arguably one of the most important parts because that movie was gorgeous, so good looking. And then Richard Madden and Yahya Abdul Mateen are rumored for roles. Both good actors. I just want more Mad Max stuff.
Yeah, I'm all for it. It's interesting the concept that the script was written before Fury Road, and then Furiosa is a character that's heavily featured in Fury Road.
Right.
So like they piggybacked off this script to create Fury Road.
Mm-hmm.
It's interesting. I don't know really like what else is there.
Is Furiosa like in your mind an interest? I don't think that Mad Max is that interesting of a character to begin with. At least not the Tom Hardy one. He barely spoke in that movie.
Right.
Do we care that Mad Max wouldn't appear? Is Charlize Theron's Furiosa, or just a character maybe without Charlize in this case, big enough of a character to draw that in, or is it just now the Mad Max name quote unquote the world, not the character, big enough to pull people in.
That's a little bit of both. I think that character was like relatively well received, so I think popular enough to validate a prequel. It would be ideal to have Charlize back in the role.
I think so.
It is what it is. So if I remember correctly, so she would have been like one of the brood mothers sort of thing.
The brides of whatever. Yeah.
So I guess the prequel would have to consist of her before that and then being captured or like indoctrinated into that, right? Like,
well, I don't think.
Fury Road starts with her escaping.
Yeah.
So like, where do you, unless it's a prequel much earlier where we don't even see
maybe she
wives.
tried to escape.
Yeah.
Or maybe I think maybe it's before the crazy dude arrives. What's his name? Do we remember his name?
The crazy
the masked dude. Yeah. I need to watch that movie again. I haven't seen it probably since the year it came out. A 4K Blu-ray of that movie would be pretty nice to look at. I would love to watch the black and white version that they have. They call it the black and chrome version, right. Which is sweet. Jeremy, what do you think? I feel like I recall you being a big fan of Fury Road. I don't know who wasn't. Does anything in that I just said to you, interest you in terms of getting you back into a theater to watch more Mad Max stuff?
Yeah, I think any new form of Mad Max, I think people are going to be pretty hyped for. That the Tom Hardy one was just like, it blew everyone's minds, and it's like still maintained in conversations today about like
one of the greatest
quality movies, and,
one of the best action movies of all time. Yeah.
So I think everyone's just like kind of patiently waiting for any Mad Max news.
Okay. Then we will continue to patiently wait for more. I don't think there's not a lot of development going on right now. There's not a lot of filming, so I don't know. Who knows when this movie would come? I'm guessing maybe. I don't think these movies look like they're hard to make, so I don't know. 2023 maybe at the earliest would be my guess. There was a Bill and Ted 3 trailer. Their first trailer was released. You guys have seen Bill and Ted? I haven't seen any of the Bill and Ted. I've never seen them.
My mom was obsessed with them, so like I watched them as a child. One of those things where she like forced me to watch them.
Really?
Yeah.
Huh.
My mom really liked Bill and Ted. Yeah.
Interesting. Jeremy, have you seen Bill and Ted?
I have.
Is Bill and Ted 3 something you wanted or cared about?
No, I think I watched them just when I was pretty young. I just thought they were kind of cool and wacky. But I never developed any sort of fandom for it.
Huh. Yeah.
It's one of those things that has a cult following. I shouldn't say weird. It's perfectly legitimate cult following.
Well, they might be, as legitimate as cult followings get.
Well, yeah, it's really popular. So, and it seems like Keanu Reeves, and I don't know the other actor's name off the top of my head, are loyal to their roles, and they wanted to bring it back as much as the fans wanted it back. So that's cool. And
apparently there was a script that was done for a long time that was pretty good. The story I heard was that there's like a producer that was like saying like, apparently we have this really good script for Bill and Ted 3. Why haven't we done anything with it? And then they're like, and then he basically went and like sold it to executives to make it happen.
It's good stuff. I mean, to me, it feels like if like Wayne's World were to come back, that's how it feels to me.
I haven't really seen those movies either, to be honest.
You've never seen Wayne's World?
No, not all the way through.
Oh, that's going in the movie club.
Just bits
that's
and
going
pieces.
In the book right now.
Writing that down. There's 2 of those too, right? You're gonna take out an entire page. Wayne's World. Anyway, Keanu Reeves is like having a real renaissance right now. I don't think he's ever been more popular than he is right now. Even when at the height of the Matrix stuff, I think Keanu Reeves is right now at his most like pop culture.
Well, he was big back then, and this is sort of like a renaissance, right? Like he's I don't know that he ever went away, I guess, but he's back now, and he's more like
it's a Keanu-sance for sure.
Sure. We'll work with that for now. But yeah, he's in video games. He's in everything nowadays.
Right. I forgot about that. He's in Cyberpunk.
Yeah.
And everyone, and it's one of those rare celebrities that's like universally loved. Like everyone, he's a great guy. He makes great movies. He's a great actor. Everyone says it's rare that comes around very often. Proud to have him in the Canadian family. And then, okay, what else we got here? Ridley Scott. Okay. So this is, I would be curious to see what you guys think about this. So Ridley Scott wants to make an Alien Covenant sequel, which I think is just Alien.
It's getting close to it, yeah.
Would any of you guys, did you like Covenant?
Yeah. Well, I mean, the Covenant, right. It's not the same heights that Alien achieved.
Did you, did Prometheus or Covenant, which is your preferred prequel movie?
They kind of blend together for me. They're both kind of goofy in some ways.
They're pretty wacky, right? Like they're like,
I want to say I like Covenant more. I think I like Covenant a little bit more.
I think Prometheus tries for more. I think it asks bigger questions, and it's like it sets up this really interesting world, and then it doesn't. I don't feel like Covenant really pays it off in a really interesting way.
Right.
You know, like it just like it felt like more of the same kind of stuff that we saw, and I think a part of the problem with the Alien franchise is like it's like how much can you really do without just like explaining everything, which I don't think is what you want in a horror franchise, right? Instead, you end up with like, okay, we have the xenomorph, very cool creature. We can all agree is a really badass design, really cool character that I think you can only do so much with before you start running out of ideas. Like,
well, that's why they got into the whole thing with the builders and like, there's other aliens, the
architects,
now, right? The architects or whatever they're called.
But no, they're all extinct.
Engineers, they're called engineers.
Engineers, but they're all extinct.
No, one comes back.
No, in Prometheus, and then it dies because it gets killed by that other alien thing, and then they go to the alien planet, and then it turns out, guess what? They're all dead because they made this virus thing that like is in the air. I don't know. It's not clear.
It's one of those things with the prequels. They did a lot of world building, right? They tried to create more of the mythos and like where these things came from. So what you can do with that now is spiral off into maybe the engineers went to some other planet and like things were a little bit different. They're a different set of environment and
that's what essentially Prometheus was to, or Covenant was to Prometheus. It was like same idea, just slightly different, right? Instead of a black goo, it was like a black spores, right?
I'm all for it though. I love that universe, and I'd like to see more alien stuff done well, at least. But
I think I read this interesting piece about Ridley Scott and his like obsession with like artificial intelligence and all that kind of stuff, and it's like he's made some really cool movies about it. But they're like, they were criticizing him for picking the wrong franchise to explore it with, because he's like, he already had a great one with with Blade Runner that he did that is like was like primed for that exact exploration, right? But instead he went and he kind of like did a turn and used Alien to explore that same like those same ideas in a much more like horrifying way, with the David character. Who, by the way, is the best part of those movies, by far. It's not even close. Magneto all the way. Jeremy, what do you think about the Alien franchise and any thoughts of returning to it?
Honestly, I with Ridley Scott, I don't know. I'd rather him just do something different. I kind of agree with what you're saying. Like, I don't know what's going to draw me into another Alien movie, other than the fact that the alien itself is like this cool, iconic, horrific, scary creature, alien or whatever. So I don't know. I don't really care, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, like we've seen the xenomorphs kill people in space, on planets, in a prison. We've basically, it's like, if all you care about is seeing the xenomorph murder people, then I think, you can just make a million of those movies and people will have a good time, I guess. But like, I don't think it's not doing anything new. I would argue.
Right.
That being said, I would recommend people go watch the 30th anniversary Alien short films. Dan, did you watch any of those?
I watched a couple of them on YouTube.
They're pretty good, eh?
They're really good, actually.
Yeah.
For like little short films.
They're like 2 to 5 minutes, I'd say, some of them. Yeah.
I mean, again, I don't think it's necessarily groundbreaking stuff, right? It's just people in an environment where there is a xenomorph, and there's also
the facehuggers.
Yeah, there's the hoes and the androids as well. Like,
the use of the androids in the Alien franchise is cool, because they always seem to find a way to do a twist on on what you expect. There's that one with I don't know what it's called, but with the android that's like leading them in circles while that alien's hunting them.
I guess I
don't know if you watched that one. It's a pretty, and then like it's a female android character, and then like the smirk that they give at the end is just such a like terrifying thing, because there's always the say I don't understand the obsession with the company has with these aliens. Like, why? What is it that they? What is it about them that they absolutely have to sacrifice every other person, every other thing is secondary to capturing one of these creatures? Why is that the case?
Because they're unkillable. They're the perfect killing machine.
Yeah.
Like if you could weaponize that, you win the game of space.
Who are they fighting? That's what I've never understood. Like, who are in the world? That's what they've never explored in my mind. So they've explored now the past for the aliens, right? Where they came from, how they were designed and created. Turns out David designed them, so that's kind of weird. And then we never really explore like what the rest of the world is like. Like, we kind of see the ships that are like really far away from Earth and like all this stuff, but we rarely ever see Earth. What's going on there? What is this Weyland-Yutani Corporation like? What are they?
Well, that's the thing.
What do
You
they care?
get the impression that it's a lot of like corporate espionage and
Right.
competing corporate interests.
There was at one time this idea that the Avatar movies existed in the same universe as the Alien movies. Like, it's the same.
Okay.
Like, it's just like a different company that like shot off to do this stuff on Pandora.
Right.
And that somewhere else in the universe, the alien stuff is going on.
Could be.
That would be kind of cool, I think. I like
it already exists in the Predator universe, right? Like, that's established.
I don't know if that's like canon in the Predator stuff.
It's got to be, Jeremy.
It's in Predator 2. Like, I know that there's like there's a xenomorph head in its skull in Predator 2. But
to me there's just one Predator movie. So.
and there's no alien in there.
No AVP.
Yeah, AVP is definitely not canon. Although I do like that movie because it's so over the top and crazy.
Yeah.
I don't think it's considered a part of the Alien or the Predator canon. Is that new Predator game out yet? Is that
Hunting?
Yeah, it's been out.
Jeremy? Have you like watched any videos on it or anything, or
what's a few things here and there? They even like had a Dutch DLC pack character thing.
I honestly, for a moment, I thought you were talking about like they did a language pack for
everybody's wearing clogs. It's just a bunch of windmills all over the place.
Did Schwarzenegger come back to voice it, or like how that?
I'm not too sure, but it sounds exactly like him.
Close enough.
There's a bunch of imitators. So
yeah, every time I feel like people try to do an imitation of Schwarzenegger, it never quite works for me. Like, there's only like it's so hard to get exactly right. I think his voice is very unique.
I think there's a lot of people that are pretty skilled with impressions.
But like even like the one in Mortal Kombat, I think is like not quite there. It's good, but like it's not quite there. I don't know. Okay, so I think we can all agree. Only more Alien if it's just a pure gore fest. Speaking of sequels, and
speaking of like 12th iterations of a franchise,
Indiana Jones 5, which was originally kind of like the deal to get Harrison Ford back for Star Wars, included doing Indiana Jones 5 because he wanted a redo after Crystal Skull. Was originally supposed to be directed by Spielberg, is now being directed by James Mangold, is the idea, with Spielberg to produce. This would be the only mainline entry in the series that wouldn't have Spielberg producing. Do you guys, A, care about a fifth Indiana Jones movie with Harrison Ford, or B, if you do, or even if you don't, does Spielberg not directing matter to you?
Jeremy?
I mean, with the news of James Mangold like doing it, I think that's pretty exciting.
Yeah, I mean, I think we know he's a pretty amazing director at this point.
So I'm pretty curious and just to see what he can do with that. So it's on one hand it's a little bit disappointing. Like you said, he wants to do like a redo and kind of show what he intended, or just kind of put a final stamp on the Indiana Jones series. But I mean, you never know. Maybe the sequel to this next one he could do. Who knows?
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those franchises that I honestly considered to be dead at this point. I wasn't looking forward to another one.
Considered to be dead. Okay,
it's fine. It's never been my favorite. I mean, I'm more interested in an Uncharted movie than another Indiana Jones, right?
Yeah, I guess I'm. Let me say this: I'm not interested in the Uncharted movie that they have in development. But I think there is I think a distinct lack of that type of movie in Hollywood right now. This like that's not an Avengers movie. That's not a Marvel film, right? This adventure, history-driven adventure movie, mystery. We haven't had a National Treasure or something in that vein, but it's that same kind of idea, right?
Sure.
We're missing that. So yeah, and Indiana obviously Uncharted is like a riff on Indiana Jones,
sure.
Right?
Tomb Raider as well.
Yeah, but I mean, I'd argue, by the way, that the layest Tomb Raider movie,
it doesn't have the same tone, I guess, but
yeah, it wasn't very good. It was a very good replica of the game, but it wasn't a very good movie. And I would like to see the franchise kind of maybe be revitalized in say, hey, here's the end of the stuff with Harrison Ford, right? We're done with Harrison Ford. He can kind of go out and say, finally, I can retire all my characters now.
Yeah.
And he can go off and just crash his planes or whatever he likes to do.
Or just retire peacefully.
Yeah, but he likes to fly planes and seems to crash them constantly. And then we can we can maybe move to another young Indiana Jones series or something that's on Disney Plus, right? That's just a fresh take that maybe that doesn't have Mutt as the main character. By the way, here's a question: do you think he'll appear in this movie? I don't think so.
Not.
Maybe it'll be a prequel to Crystal Skull, kind of like how Indiana Jones 2 is a prequel to the first movie.
In which? Sorry.
So yeah, did you know this? That Temple of Doom is a prequel to Raiders. So maybe this will be a prequel to.
Sure, or just forget about Crystal Skull altogether. Pretend it's not part of the franchise.
It's a pretty bad movie. It does some pretty crazy stuff. He gets into a fridge and survives a nuclear explosion. You know how there's the phrase "jump the shark" for television shows.
Yep.
So for movie franchises, the phrase there was a common phrase was to nuke the fridge.
Yeah,
because of that movie.
Because they did that. They created that phrase by going way over the top.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. Jeremy, do you care about the franchise at all, or is it just the James Mangold aspect that is kind of getting you interested here?
I like the franchise. I mean, I think you're right. I think someone could definitely rejuvenate it and make it a franchise that could last like an Uncharted. I think it kind of holds that legacy, that the first to kind of ever do it. So I think it'll always exist in some form.
Yeah, I agree. There's a lot of people who basically think that Indiana Jones doesn't exist without Harrison Ford, and I think he does embody the character, pretty much. Him, Han Solo, though Alden Ehrenreich did a very good job in Solo. I think it's hard to imagine the character played by anybody else, but I think like anything else that Disney owns, it will be iterated on until it's no longer popular enough to be iterated on.
And I like the idea of a young indie show on Disney Plus. I think that has legs.
Right? That'd be fun. The Bourne franchise. He's talking about another franchise that is been driven into the ground. There's 3 really good movies, right? Then a spin-off one, and then that 4th one that no one likes that no one talks about.
Right.
Do you guys want to see more of the Bourne franchise? There is, by the way, a Treadstone television show on Amazon Prime,
right,
which is I think obviously in that same universe. But do you guys want to see more of Jason Bourne?
It's a really cool character and a really cool world that they've built.
Yeah,
I do enjoy those movies quite a bit. It's like Indiana Jones. I kind of had assumed it was dead for the time being.
I just kind of like that alien thing. I don't think there's anything else you can tell, new stories you can tell with Jason Bourne's character.
Well, because it's not about Bourne anymore. It's new agents, right? They have to expand, and
right.
It becomes less and less interesting when it's the same story repeated.
Well, it's oh, I don't have my memory, and then you slowly get your memory back.
Right.
It's and then I'm going to escape the program, and then get. I don't know. It's
these are the episodes where I know a lot of people say that there's no creativity in Hollywood, and I don't think that that's true. But all we've talked about in this goddamn episode is sequels. It's they're bringing this franchise back. They're doing this. 10 is the only new thing we've talked about.
Well, yeah, there is. We mentioned this last night at the bonfire we're at, but there is a new Netflix movie from Spike Lee that I haven't seen, but that's something that's new and interesting.
It's called Da 5 Bloods. It's it's a Vietnam War movie.
I'm very excited to see that movie. So like there is stuff.
There's always new stuff. It's just the ones that catch the headlines, I guess, are like, oh, remember Indiana Jones? Remember Bourne?
It's just the member bear. It's the member berries thing.
That's what it feels like, anyway.
Right. Okay, so how about this? This is a bit more of a agree or disagree type segment.
Mm-hmm.
We haven't done one of those in a while, but I'm not going to do the jingle because A, we don't have one, and B, I'm still not. I think it's a pretty clear cut case here. So Gone with the Wind. Has everyone seen Gone with the Wind?
Yeah,
I have not. I have not seen Gone with the Wind.
It's another one that my mother forced upon me as a child.
Is it like a musical?
Dan,
No.
Okay.
It's set during the Civil War, I believe.
Yeah,
right?
American Civil War.
Yeah. So Gone with the Wind was like the biggest movie. It's in fact adjusted for inflation. I think it's still like it might be number one in terms of all-time earners in film history, just because it was playing in theaters for so long and there's really nothing else to watch, and it was extremely popular. This movie was a massive hit at the time that it was released. I think is in the 50s, 60s.
Oh,
the 60s.
Earlier than that, I think.
And it how do we phrase this? It doesn't treat it feels very old fashioned in its racial
of
politics.
Its time,
yeah.
And of the time that it was trying to represent, and there's a lot of very uncomfortable racism in the movie.
Right. It plays kind of like, from what I understand, having not seen it, but having kind of read about this story, it plays kind of like these like slaves being like grateful to be treated well and all this kind of stuff. It's like it's very kind of gross, but again of its time, right? So after a plea from 12 Years a Slave writer John Ridley, HBO pulled Gone with the Wind from HBO Max library. They released a statement. I'll just kind of paraphrase it. Basically, they're saying, "Hey, we want to be cognizant of the realities of this film and when it was released, but we think it's important that a message is created ahead of time, like a warning, essentially, that says that condemns some of those choices, that gives it context for the time, before we put it back up there." So 12 or Gone with the Wind, without context, they're saying shouldn't be on there, but we want it back with context.
That's the thing. It needs a disclaimer just to say, hey, look, this movie was made a long time ago. There are certain things that were widely accepted back then that aren't now for good reason. Mm-hmm. So, like, there are pieces of that are going to be in this movie. That being said, it's still a piece of film history.
Yeah.
But I mean, ultimately, if it is that upsetting, like, get rid of it. Like, I don't think that we need to.
Yeah. No. I don't like the idea of just like removing like art from catalogs because it makes people uncomfortable, right? Like I think can look at things that are made from a certain time and understand the realities of the time, right? And condemn those choices today with context. So I would, if they just removed it without, that's basically try to remove Gone with the Wind from all they own the franchise or the title, whatever. They can do whatever they want with it. But if they were to do that without kind of what they said and what they're planning to do, I think it would be a different story. But I think they're treating it the exact right way. By the way, they did the same thing, similar thing with the older episodes of the Looney Tunes cartoons. So there's some like overtly racist caricatures in the early Looney Tunes stuff.
Oh yeah.
So they have disclaimers. I think Whoopi Goldberg actually has she sits down and explains it to people before the episode.
Well, I mean, I think it's probably something that can be included in the ratings, like if it's rated R or PG-13 or whatever. Like, in Watchmen, actually, there was in the HBO series Watchmen, at one point when they were doing the what was the superhero, the under the hood sort of thing, what was it called? American Superhero Story, whatever, right? They had a disclaimer at the top of that. This is in world, and it was like this show contains depictions of, and it had violence, sexuality, but then it also included racism, misogyny, and a bunch of stuff that aren't typically included in ratings currently. And it's like maybe now's the time to expand that.
It's almost like that HBO Watchmen series was very prescient.
Well, hey, look, yeah,
it's pretty crazy how ahead of its time. By about a year. less than a year. It's insane, actually. If you go back, apparently I'm not necessarily in a rush to go rewatch that Watchmen series right now, but apparently people who have gone back and rewatched it are saying it's pretty eerie, kind of the similarities to what we're seeing like in the real world right now.
Well,
Yeah, go ahead.
Look at the opening scene, like the two opening scenes of the very first episode.
Yeah, the Tulsa riots.
The Tulsa riots, and then also in present day with the cop.
With the cop, yeah. It's insane.
Yeah, so it was a modern commentary. I wouldn't say that it was ahead of its time. If anything, it's late. Like this is long overdue, right?
Yes,
like,
I guess. Yeah. But like its depiction of kind of like a version of this like basically it seems like they saw what was coming in the future and then wrote around that in a very like succinct way. It like really fits for some in an uncomfortable way also. It's almost too close. I don't know. That's an amazing television series.
It is.
So if you haven't seen it, watch it. Jeremy, what do you think about this, about taking Gone with the Wind off the library with the idea that it will come back?
So it's just being taken off like for the time being or something?
Yeah.
And then they're going to add a disclaimer at the top of it.
Later. They don't feel like it's a good right time for it to be in the library.
I mean, I don't see anything wrong with that. I think calling out these types of things and just having disclaimers is a good thing.
Yeah, I think we all agree on this. This is why it's not an agree or disagree. But
it's an agree or you're off the show.
Yeah. So speaking of HBO series, one of the miniseries from last year that was very popular was Chernobyl. It won a couple Emmys. And the creator of HBO's Chernobyl, who is also writing the upcoming Borderlands movie for Eli Roth, Craig Mazin, is going to be executive producing and writing the Last of Us series along with Neil Druckmann. Johan Renck, who won an Emmy for directing all 5 episodes of Chernobyl, is confirmed to be directing at least, quote unquote, at least the pilot episode for the Last of Us series. Seems like a pretty good fit.
Yeah, I think it has the right tone. Right, Chernobyl has a very similar tone to Last of Us. It's sort of dark and almost depressing.
Visually, it's very close. I mean, when you think of like modern day Chernobyl and how it's like overrun by like plants and like it very much feels like that. Yeah, that same kind of look and feel to what The Last of Us is too. I don't know. I think it's like a perfect combination of creators. Jeremy, what do you think?
Yeah, I think, well, we already knew that they were working with the people who produced Chernobyl, so, I mean, picking this director is a no-brainer.
Do we know what, I'm going to look up Craig Mazin, John Renck and see what else he's done. I'm still have Chernobyl on my list of series to watch. It's never quite felt like the right time to watch
because
something
it's a tough one. Like it's a slog. It's not a happy show, and it's a challenging show, I think, for a lot of people.
That's the thing. It's I watched like 2 scenes. I think we watched like 3 scenes.
I watched the first episode, and it is an intense show. Like I could tell that I wasn't in the right headspace to keep watching because I just felt uncomfortable afterwards.
Right.
But that doesn't mean at all that it's bad. It's a like classically great show. It's just a little depressing to watch.
Yeah, and so it's on my list. I'll get there too eventually. So this director, John Renck, he's doing The Last of Us, like we said. Chernobyl, did all 5 episodes. Also known for Breaking Bad, We Are the Walking Dead, Bloodline, which I've heard good things of. He's done a lot of stuff actually. Halt and Catch Fire, Vikings. He's done some episodes of that.
Okay, so a lot of like the big TV shows.
Yeah,
that's good.
Huge stuff actually. And then he did like a bunch of stage stuff. But yeah, so that's interesting. It's hard to say what the show is really like going to be about. Like, is it just a translation of the first game into a movie? Is it an exploration of the world in a different place, a different time? We don't know yet. There's been the first reviews for The Last of Us Part 2, by the way, the game, is coming out in about a week.
4 days.
Right. Like I said, like about a week.
It's about half a week.
There's been a lot of interesting responses, I think, to some of the stuff, and it's always tough because the video game community online can be a bit
divisive.
Yeah, and just
Polarized.
not the nicest people, I'd argue. So like Jeff Kanata, for instance, he's a film critic, video game reviewer, generally nice guy, it seems like. So he wrote this tweet about how The Last of Us 2 is not a fun game, and it's very much not trying to be fun in the classical sense.
Right.
And he compared it to like John Wick, and it's the way it tries to have a fun time at the theater, to something like Schindler's List, which is not out to be fun to watch, right? He got a lot of backlash for that. I think wrongly, because I think he's comparing not the subject matter, but the intent of the creative intent, which is, I think, two different things. But we've also seen similar stuff about backlash to the leaks and some of the story stuff. Like even Jeremy, like one of our friends, said that they aren't going to buy the game because they think it's.
Let's not get into this. The leaks though.
I don't want. We're not going to talk about the specifics. I'm just saying that like it seems like there's a lot of controversy around this series right now. Does that give you pause at all in thinking about a series set in the same universe, or what? Or do you think a challenging show like that or a challenging subject matter like that is probably a good thing in the long run?
Maybe not right now. It might be like now's not necessarily the time. I think people who are using entertainment, and at the end of the day, these things are all entertainment, right?
Right.
So anybody who's using any form of entertainment media is kind of looking for escapism more than previously, I guess, because the world outside sucks right now. But at the same time, like what we've always said about The Last of Us is it really is one of those pure examples of video games as art forms, right? It's an experience, and it's not always going to be a pleasant experience. It's not about just like, yeah, we can pop on Call of Duty and just shoot people and have fun, and that's mindless entertainment. And Last of Us is more about the story, and it's a different form of entertainment, and it's not always about being fun. It's about making you feel things, and sometimes those things are negative emotions that you still need that catharsis to get out.
It's asking you to consider your actions. I think it's different. So there's some of the thoughts about this, which I don't know if they were articulated well, but I think it's different in film and a game. I think if you in a movie are a character in a film that you're watching is confronted with the decisions that they've made, right, is different than you as a character being forced to do something, being confronted with those same those decisions, because it may feel a bit kind of preachy, to say, hey, how dare you do that when you didn't have a choice, So I think that's a really tough line to walk, and I'm really interested to see how The Last of Us 2 handles that, because there's a moment like that at the end of the first game that I don't think it did handle very well, and I appreciate it as a story element, but not as a gameplay element. And I think there's a tough line to walk there. And a lot of people are saying, like, from that by the way, that Jeff Kanata review, which is saying like, well, it's not fun, then why would I buy this game, right? Which I think is really reductive.
Yeah, but it's fine. Like maybe the game's not for that person then, if that's how they
that's basically what they
approach
said.
these things.
Mm-hmm. Jeremy, what are your thoughts on this stuff?
Yeah, well, like I think if someone wants to start off a review by saying the game's not fun, like I think it just really depends on what your definition of fun is, I guess, when you're playing the game. Because for me, like survival horrors, which this is kind of in that genre, like I've had some of the craziest experiences that I probably wouldn't define as fun either, but I kind of still categorize them in that space because the experience was just so mind changing or life altering, like an experience that just kind of changes you a bit. So I think people just they definitely took that guy's tweet or review out of context for sure. And
well, yeah, no one's really played it yet. There's only in a select number of hands right now.
Yeah, and yeah, to people who want to just write off the game without experiencing it, I mean that's just on them. And I think actually the reviews, like most of the reviews came out right. Like I think
getting
it
tens,
just
nines.
the poster with all the reviews basically looks like it's photoshopped because there is no nines, it's all tens basically.
I've seen a couple some alternate takes, which I think are always interesting. You know, like say like someone who's like, you know, all these tens, and someone who really didn't like it or only thought it was only okay. I like to see those just to see kind of, you know, what was so different that, you know, in their mind.
Right.
But it's hard. I haven't read a lot of that stuff because I want to stay as kind of spoiler free as possible going into this game. It's going to be. I think it'll likely be the biggest game of the year. I think it'd be hard to top. I mean, any Naughty Dog launch is going to be a big game, but in context to the show too, I think there's a lot to explore in this world. But you know, we also just watched Zombieland 2, right, the other day. There is also I think double tap. Yeah, I just think there's a sense of kind of exhaustion with the zombie genre. And yes, and though they're not technically zombies, it's just a different form of zombie.
Just like post-apocalyptic.
Does that something like that could affect this? You know, it's saying like, hey, you know, we've kind of seen this before. This is something it's been done.
I don't know. I don't think that personally. I'm not sick of zombies. I don't have that zombie fatigue. What it always comes down to, what a good zombie movie is always about, is like, you know, that concept. The real monsters are the people that you interact with. It's like the zombies are just a natural force, but it's the interaction with other people that becomes the driving force of the movie,
right?
Or the video game in this case. So that I won't get sick of. Stuff like Zombieland I am kind of sick of, because it's like that tongue-in-cheek. It's a humorous take. It's like the zombies, they're not a threat, but there's also like basically no story in that movie. Like,
and the stakes are
relatively low
low
because the zombies aren't a threat to anybody, right?
Yeah.
So
they did try to introduce a new threatening zombie, but even that wasn't that.
So like I'm kind of sick of those, or like Santa Clarita Diet and stuff. Like we were talking about this the other day. Like the stuff where they're kind of poking fun at the zombie mythos. I don't find that satisfying personally. But this type of property, I won't get sick of.
I guess it feels like, you know, there's a lot of people say it's like, well, it's a version of the Walking Dead type of experience, right? And I think that's true. I think that's a fair.
Yeah, it's just a slice of life.
Yeah. So I think if you have, just like anything, you can inundate, you know, a market with too much of the same thing. I think The Last of Us approaches it in a way that I think is just different enough, or at least maybe just the right amount of sameness to The Walking Dead to kind of revitalize it a little bit, because The Walking Dead, we can all agree, is kind of, I think it's kind of run its course. Yes, that's exactly what I was looking for. I don't think people are excited about that show anymore, really, in the same way that it was in the first couple years of that show. Yeah. So maybe this is kind of exactly what this genre needs, is a kind of a fresh take on something that feels familiar, but also treating it in a new way. So we shall see. Dan, you watched that trailer for Lovecraft Country. Do you anything to say on that? I don't. You know, another HBO
it's another
series.
HBO show. Yeah. It looks cool. It's Jordan Peele and J.J. Abrams, so that.
Yeah, that's a good combo.
I'm automatically interested.
Mm-hmm.
The trailer's a little confusing, and I don't love that Lovecraft is in the name, because like it seems like it's going to be a Lovecraftian type like supernatural show, and it doesn't make sense for the author's name to be in. Like,
but I think
world,
but Lovecraft as a like style of horror or style of whatever is kind of evolved past just the author's name. Like it has its own. It's kind of its own verb.
Well, the genre would be called cosmic horror.
I think
it's pretty broad.
I think people use Lovecraftian as a shorthand for that.
Yeah, for sure they do. Mm-hmm. Which is why it doesn't make sense for it to be the name of the actual county. Because if they start saying that these monsters are Lovecraftian, like I'm going to quit the show. Like that doesn't make any sense.
No, that doesn't make any sense. Well, unless maybe it's one of those like scenarios where isn't what I'm trying to think of, like Bates Motel or something like that, where it's like it exists in the world.
Yeah.
You know, I don't know.
It's also like I'm jumping to conclusions here because I'm saying that because it has Lovecraft in the title. There's no actual indication in the trailer that there's going to be Lovecraftian monsters. There's some sort of supernatural thing going on, but I didn't see any references to the old gods or anything like that.
There's no Cthulhu appearance.
There's no Call of Cthulhu. There's nothing like that.
Right. Although
at this point, and actually the trailer was more. It seemed like it was like, you know, there's I am assuming a black family moving into this county, and there's like a voiceover like, they don't like outsiders here, and it's playing on that racial tension thing a little bit.
We don't take kindly to your types around here.
There's some weird supernatural stuff, so it's more like they don't like outsiders because they're a threat or something like that. I don't know.
Right. Okay.
It's a quick trailer, but I'm interested. It's HBO, so
yeah, they haven't done a lot of bad stuff lately. Okay, that probably does it, Dan. Unless you have any thoughts on the Hellboy movie, you weren't able to finish.
It's not great.
Yeah,
I wanted it to be great, but the Guillermo del Toro ones are decent. This one is just, it feels really.
Oh, so you watched the reboot one?
Yeah, the new one. I tried to watch it, Jeremy.
David Harbour.
I couldn't make it through with the movie.
I heard it was absolutely terrible, and that only the
trailer looked really good, but I heard it was terrible.
It has its moments for sure. Some of the writing's decent, but like it really feels like there was a lot left on the cutting room floor. Like it just kind of jumps around, and it feels like disambiguous. Like they needed more scenes to bring it all together and become a cohesive whole, and it's not that to me.
So we have a comment here from Sammy Chamford, one of our friends of the show. And he's saying that Chernobyl was great, but the main stupid nuclear engineer was on a show called Friday Night Dinner in the UK, and you can't help but see his character in that throughout Chernobyl. Which,
that sucks.
That would suck. So I've never seen that show, and I'm not gonna before I watch Chernobyl. Then I'll just watch that after. Okay, so I think let's jump to the gaming stuff. We haven't kind of combined the gaming stuff with the regular show for a while, but with the lack of news. I think it's
and we just talked about Last of Us for a while.
Yeah. So let's in context to the show, I think that's fair. So let's jump to this PlayStation 5 announcement. I'll just give you the kind of the Cole's notes. Bunch of games were kind of revealed. 26 new PlayStation 5 games. The box itself was shown. The price was not. The release date was not. I think we're still basically assuming holiday this year is will be released. Don't know pricing, which is frustrating. I think I would have liked to have seen that.
Yeah.
There's a digital only version and a disced version, or disc and discless version. That one will probably have a 4K media Blu-ray player, and the other will just be you download your stuff, which is interesting. I think in and of itself that's interesting because I mostly just download my games now, unless it's like a big release, like God of War or Last of Us or Jedi Fallen Order. I go and buy the actual game. It's rare, otherwise I'll just download it. So it's intriguing to me. When we'll get to that, but I guess I'll just get you guys' takes on like what you guys thought of the actual box itself, how the announcement kind of played to you. If you're still kind of on Team Sony in this, or are you waffling at all? What do you think?
I guess I'll go first because I think I have a different opinion than you guys.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think it looks that bad. I appreciate the way it looks. It's a very different direction than traditional Sony products. I am still definitely on board with Sony as a whole, and it's less about the console, more about the exclusive titles for me.
Right? Yeah, no, that's fair.
That's always what it comes down to. So
super excited for Gran Turismo, I guess. Hey,
yeah, take or leave the racing games, but I mean, Spider-Man, Last of Us is an exclusive, so like you have to have a Sony system,
right?
But yeah, no, in terms of how it looks. It kind of looks like a futuristic console. It's like this is the next gen.
But is that going to age well?
Yeah, everything going forward is going to look like that.
I saw jokes that it looked like it was made on Camino, which I think
yeah, exactly.
That's not a good thing.
Or anytime any sort of like really super futuristic sci-fi thing, everything looks like that, like sleek and white and spotless. And
yeah, I think it looks terrible. I think it looks super ugly. And it's also way taller than all the other consoles. Like it's like a good 3 to 4 inches taller than the Xbox Series X. They need to figure out their naming convention. And I think it looks better horizontally than it does vertically. But even then, I still think it's not going to age well. And I think that the redesign will look. I think they'll figure that out, and it'll look much better. Just kind of like the original PS3 didn't look that great either. I don't think. The PS3 Slim, much more of a kind of a sleeker design. Jeremy, what's your thought?
I'm kind of a fan of more of a simpler look, more of a modular techy look. this to me just kind of comes off as like an Alienware type PC with kind of just inexplainable like parts and looks to it.
Like, why does it have like a popped collar? I saw someone on Twitter call it that. Like, what is the purpose of these like extra like bits that are coming out the side?
It makes it aerodynamic.
It's just so funny too. Like watching the whole stream, I think that's probably what I was anticipating most, and obviously gameplay.
Yeah.
Which I don't think we got too much gameplay of in some of the reveals.
I agree. Yeah.
I think Ratchet and Clank looked pretty sweet. It really showcased how different it is from current gen, just how like seamless everything really is, and just the detail in the lighting, like the ray tracing. It's so visible everywhere on every surface. It just makes everything just really pop out and look more realistic. But I would have liked to see more gameplay in there for other games.
Yeah.
And I thought it was kind of long.
Yeah, it was super long.
They're pandering to a lot of different audiences, I guess, right? Family and hardcore, I guess. And I thought it was kind of silly. Like every transition, there was like a CGI like cutscene with like the symbols.
It reminded me of remember those old PS3 commercials with like that like black squid thing and like the ink. You guys remember that? In like a white room. It just was like, what does this have to do with anything? And why are we wasting time? The only cool part was
for me, it kept showing different versions of that and like the like shapes like moving around.
Yeah.
Like I knew they were like gonna tease the eventual look, and then even when they did towards the end, it was like a super long CGI like
it's like
scene
swooping through the different areas, and I'm like, why?
And like all these shapes are popping out, and it looks like a Venom symbiote at one point. I think even Xbox did the same thing. It was like this vibrating Venom symbiote before like the mini fridge came out. But then when they showed this one, I was like, what the? I just thought it looked so hideous, just compared to conventional looks. Obviously with time, like I'm fine. It doesn't really make or break my purchase or anything.
Right.
But I think I'd probably get the all black version rather than the white.
Is there an all black version?
There will be.
There will be, and ultimately, and Jeremy, you do this sometimes too. Like you can customize it, right? You can buy things to add to it.
Yeah, whatever, right? I just like I think putting a white like grips on a controller, I think is problematic to begin with. It's going to get dirty and gross. It's going to look gross. Yeah. And I think that's kind of sucks because like the controller you're going to get at launch is going to be white. You just got to
put the Cheetos down for 1 minute while you.
Why would I do that? I'm so hungry.
Or just buy like a little plastic thing for it.
And like, it looks like the actual console itself looks like a sandwich, but then like, it's only got two USB ports, one USB A and one USB C port on the front. The controller's USB C charging, so it's probably going to be USB C to USB C to charge. Sure. Leaves you only one additional USB port. That'll likely be fine, but it does seem a little limiting. And then, I guess talking to the discless version, does that interest you guys at all? I think that's just going to be the way of saying, hey, we have a cheaper version, and the other one's going to be pretty damn expensive.
I was going to ask, I didn't watch the reveal, and I assumed you guys would have. Did they mention anything about storage, like internal storage?
I think that information was real before. I believe that a terabyte.
This was basically just games being showed, and then they just had like a montage of the buzzwords.
Yeah.
Of like ray tracing and 3D audio. And then it was mostly just the developers kind of giving a quick intro to whatever trailer was about to drop or after.
Yeah. I don't know. I think more utility out of the version with the disc in as a 4K Blu-ray player, right?
Yeah.
I'm not. It's not about the price for me. I think it looks a bit sleeker and slimmer, obviously without the disc drive. But you kind of need that if you want to have like an entertainment system, right?
Yeah,
I think with 4K discs, which I think we're going to be into, I think we're going to want to buy or start buying those more often, right? And be able to utilize it in the PS5.
I'm split because I think I mostly would prefer digital only, but it's stuff like 4K, which it's like really hard to stream because you're just not going to get the visual pop that you would with a uncompressed Blu-ray. I don't want to buy a whole ton of 4K Blu-rays, but I also want to have the option of playing them. Right. I guess technically we already have a 4K Blu-ray player, so I could just skip that process and go straight to the discless version. But then you start talking about having limited storage. I think 825 gigabyte SSD is where you're starting.
Well, does the diskless version have have more storage?
You'll probably start at the same. You'll probably have the ability to buy 825 and like maybe a 2 terabyte version or something. I don't know. I just think that's not a lot. I don't think that's a lot of storage in when you look at Dan, the PS4 you have right now is 2 games on it.
Yeah, I just pre-ordered Last of Us and it's downloading now. But I had to clear out. I have Mortal Kombat and Call of Duty and that's it. Call of Duty takes up a lot of space.
We can all agree that Call of Duty takes up way too much room. It's constantly just trying to eat up more of your hard drive all the time. It releases an update and it's like, here's an 800 gigabyte download. You're like, what the fuck is going on? Yeah. So I think that is a little small, actually. I think I think the idea here is that they're releasing this version, or they're going to have this version, so they can say starting at $4.99, when really the disc version is going to be $5.99 or more, and that's going to be the one that most people want. It's the same move that they use for iPhone. It's like the entry level iPhone is basically useless because it has no storage. It's like. But they can say price starting at
technically whatever. That you could technically get this product for this cheap,
but it wouldn't be.
But it won't have any of the features you want.
Exactly. So I'll probably go with the disked version. I don't, for lack of a better word.
Disc in.
Yeah. I think are we all kind of on that same idea, Jeremy? I know you collect more physical hardware. I feel like Dan, of anyone here, you feel like would be the one who would more likely go with the diskless version.
I would think about it, but I ultimately I think I'll go with the disc in version. Right. We're not there yet, and we still need the disc drive for this generation.
It's also if you can play your PS4 games on it. So if you have those discs,
right? Mm-hmm. Well, and that's the other thing about this that's interesting is even a lot of the games that they announced weren't necessarily new. That Spider-Man thing is an expansion. It's not a brand new game.
It is a standalone game. That's what. Insomniac is saying.
Really?
It's a standalone game. That's what they're saying.
It's the same engine, but obviously revamped and for the PS5.
Yeah.
And then they created a game with Miles. People are mostly kind of comparing it to that Uncharted Lost Legacy. Because that was kind of its own game that you buy for basically full price. Maybe not a super, super long campaign, but with Spider-Man.
Like a Resident Evil 3 situation. Same engine. Yeah.
Right, but I think it's going to be more bang for your buck than that. But
you really felt
just in terms of you're going to have all of New York, and there's going to be a lot of stuff to do.
Mm-hmm. So I'm reading this off of Tech Radar, but it's saying initially thought it was the sequel to Insomniac's critically acclaimed, but I'm getting mixed messages because Insomniac tweeted out that it's a standalone game, but that also could be mixed messaging because that just could mean it's a standalone game. You can buy this version.
Yeah, you can buy it physically. My understanding is that maybe what they mean by that is that there's enough additional content that it's the equivalent of a standalone game, but it's an expansion, right?
I think it's closer.
The title is an expanded remaster of the original game. It revisits on the PS5 superior hardware with added content,
featuring the titular Miles Morales. So we'll see. It looks exciting. I think I'm the most. I don't know if I'm the most excited about that one. It's probably Horizon. Probably is where I fall more closely. But those are kind of the two big ones for me in terms of
Demon
game
Souls.
releases. Is
Souls.
that exciling? For
yeah,
you?
Absolutely.
Did you play the original Demon Souls?
I played a little bit of the first one. It's too hard. That game is too hard.
Well, this is a rematch. Dan's like, I don't know what to tell you. It's impossible.
I like video games. I like to think I'm good at video games. That game is too goddamn hard. I played a lot of Bloodborne, which is really good.
Yeah.
I got pretty far in that, but I'm very excited for that.
Then Gran Turismo 7. Yeah. I thought the weirdest thing was starting the whole thing. I know, Dana, you didn't watch the whole thing, but it started with a trailer for Grand Theft Auto 5, which is a game that came out for the PS3. So I think that was insane. So it's I think GTA 5 online is free for anyone who buys I'm not sure what the exact announcement was. I'll have to find it. But it was just an interesting choice.
But what's interesting about that is the shift in the model, right? Because I was reading a Forbes article about this just to reference, but we're switching to games as service, right? As a model. So a game like Grand Theft Auto or Destiny's been around for a while, even Mortal Kombat. So they just released the Aftermath expansion. but they're going to be releasing, skins and additions to the game for a while. Like their idea is that the game lasts for years. So the first thing we do when we buy a new console is port these games over and all of our data over to the new console and continue playing the game we were already playing with up-res graphics.
Yeah, but Sony's message in this trailer was that they believe in distinct generational divides. That was their message here. Yep. But I think that it could be that they were just kind of like, it's just corporate spin saying, hey, we're not doing as much backwards compatibility as Xbox is. So we believe in firm divides,
sure. Yeah.
And I, but for the record, I also kind of prefer the firm divide. I think. That being said, I think we've kind of reached kind of a plateau. These games don't look that much better than a really good looking PS4 game. So the SSD technology, some of those other things are kind of what separates it. You see, in Ratchet and Clank, that like jumping through universes and stuff is something you can only do with an SSD, and you can do more interesting kind of AI stuff maybe. But from a graphical standpoint, I don't think we're going to see a big jump here. It doesn't look like that anyway. Jeremy, I'm interested to get your thoughts on Resident Evil 8: The Village or Village. It's a weird name.
Well, I never played 7. I'm kind of like the original like series purist rather than the newer kind of reinvention that it did lastly with Resident Evil 7. So this one, I mean, I think it's continuing that. It's kind of more of a straight up just like horror experience, kind of a wacky horror experience.
Well, to be fair, Resident Evil's always been a little bit wacky.
But it's more of an action or puzzle or like these ones are way more wackier than the first series.
But Chris Redfield's in this one.
Yeah, I know, but it's like he looks different. It's weird.
So I heard people talking about this idea that like the way that Capcom's approaching the RE series right now is kind of like 3 distinct trilogies. So you got like your original trilogy, like tank controls. Then you have your like 4, 5, 6, which is like more action oriented, less puzzly. And then you have 7, 8, 9, which we're only up to 8 now. But it's like, again, it's more first person, more kind of back to like just again horror roots. And like, I guess when you kind of like look at it like that, I think that's kind of an interesting kind of like neat way to approach it. I think series like Resident Evil that have been around this long, I mean, reinventing themselves, I think is probably a good thing. And people seem to come around on 7 saying that some people didn't like it at first, but like people coming saying like it's actually really, really good and probably should get more credit for kind of being as good as it is.
Also, these games, it seems like they're kind of designed primarily with VR in mind, right? Like obviously you can play it without, but that's the next wave. And that's actually another thing that we haven't talked about that's really exciting about the next generation of consoles is the next iteration of VR technology. Because I think now is the time to jump in.
Yeah, and I think if you're excited about VR, I think PC is where you live, right? It's tough because I think the consoles move so slowly that slowly in comparison to how quickly like a PC upgrades, year to year.
Yeah.
But like, if you have a console like the PS5, it's out for 7, 8 years, whatever, maybe longer. By the end of the tail, it's looking and feeling aged, and it's what it can do in comparison to what the tech that's being pushed on the PC side is kind of lapped it already a little bit. So if you really like VR, I think you have to kind of think about it from the PC side. And I think I've kind of my tone has changed a little bit because I was excited about PSVR originally, but I think it's just a little bit too far behind what Oculus is doing with like the Quest and stuff like that. That it's not quite there. And I think if I would love to have like a beefy PC to be able to like set up a VR rig and like do room scale and all that kind of stuff, but these consoles are much more traditional in kind of what they're doing. They want to create, especially the PlayStation, that's kind of been their message. It's about gamers creating a gaming experience, and it's just they're not designed for VR. They're designed for in front of the television model. Yet. But I also think we're getting close to the end of consoles to begin with. I think with things like Google Stadia, PS Now, is that what it's called? I think. Yeah. These streaming models, I think we're getting closer. We're not there yet. We're getting closer to just not having to have a console at all. You just buy the game, which would be great. It'd be like movies. You can watch it on anything. Why do I need a special box, to play my games? I think that this maybe not be the last generation, but I think if it's not this one, it'll be the next one will be the last one.
That's interesting.
I'd be interested, Jeremy. I would love to get Resident Evil 7 and like have you like stream it and like sit down and like play through it as the big Resident Evil fan here, and just
yeah,
get your take
like
on it.
like I also said, like if I'm ever going to play that game, like I want to do it in VR,
Right.
because I just think, like Dan said, they kind of designed these ones in mind with that. So I think I'd only play it in VR if I had a chance to play these ones.
That's how you die.
That's
terrifying.
Yeah, that sounds like a terrible experience to me. This one's introducing like I guess like werewolf type creatures, which is interesting. It could be a form of the virus. Like the virus can do anything.
Yeah,
seems like. So it's like, but like Jeremy said, like the quote unquote wackier stuff from 7, I think is more traditional, just like supernatural horror stuff, and less kind of to do with the virus and kind of what was going on before, which is maybe where that disconnect is coming from.
Yeah, it's definitely that. The supernatural kind of lost me with that. With kind of diving into that.
I imagine, and I don't know for sure, but my guess is that it's tied closer to the stuff that we know from Resident Evil than we think, and then it's kind of just played with those trappings, because it's otherwise it's not really a Resident Evil game, right? If Wesker doesn't show up at the end,
that's why they emphasized the village name, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah. Well, and I think it's interesting that they put Chris in, right in the trailer. He shoots a guy in the head like 8 times. It's crazy.
Probably with silver bullets, right?
I don't know. Maybe I don't know how. I don't know if those classical rules would apply to werewolves in the Resident Evil universe. Do you have to shoot a zombie in the head only for it to die in the Resident Evil universe?
Well, depends.
Depends on the type.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sometimes their heads explode and tentacles come out.
That's Ouroboros.
Right. There's some pretty interesting. There's some other stuff like Project Athia was announced. I'm looking at some of these other ones. Ratchet and Clank. Ratchet and Clank, in terms of like an actual, I've never played any of the Ratchet and Clank games.
They're a blast. They're a lot of fun.
It seems like that would be. There's a movie, I'm pretty sure, out, by the way. Isn't there a Ratchet and Clank movie?
Yeah.
Wouldn't mind trying it out, like a really next gen platformer.
I think Juan, you would like it, like the humor in Ratchet and Clank.
Right.
All of us, I think you would appreciate that.
I'll give it a shot. It looks like it's a
just
lot
very
of fun
like
to play.
juvenile,
Right. Yeah. Childish. Right. There's a Sackboy game. I think it's interesting that Sony's kind of leaning into the Sackboy like mascot a little bit.
Yeah.
NBA 2K21. Very exciting. This Destruction's All Stars thing. It looks ridiculous to me. It's like. What's the car combat game from the PlayStation? Twisted Metal. But it's like, it looks like Fortnite. You can get out of your car, like jump over cars. It's like, it seems like one of those kind of things like we talk about, like movies made from an algorithm.
Yeah.
This looks like a game made from an algorithm.
It's like people like this, people like A, people like B, so let's just
put them all together. Yeah, I don't know. Not my style. But this Deathloop game looks pretty interesting. This idea of like constantly being killed over and over again, and like it kind of feels like Live, Die, Repeat, the Edge of Tomorrow kind of thing, which I think is pretty cool.
But it's kind of like a Quentin Tarantino like aesthetic.
Yeah,
almost.
yeah. I thought the trailer was really fun, and it's from Arcane, so it's like it's got some pedigree. Stray looks cool, like visually. It's like you play as a cat in a world with only robots. Like robots are
no gameplay though, really.
No gameplay. I did see some interesting behind the scenes stuff with like their movement. So they're like designing how the cat would move in 3D space. Not a lot of games where you get to play as a cat. So
not a lot of games where you want to play as a cat.
Really?
I don't think so. I don't know.
Acrobatic.
I would be interested in the gameplay and like what the story of the game is. If you're just a cat wandering around with a bunch of robots,
I think I'm. If they don't make it clear, but my guess is that you're kind of observing the world through the perspective of the cat, and that I don't know how much like you as the cat are like affecting the world as so much as being affected by it and like witnessing the world around you. It's kind of like it's kind of like a walking simulator, but with like a little bit more platforminess to it, It might be interesting. Returnal looks really strange. It's a Housemarque game. So Housemarque, interesting studio. So these PlayStation studio, they made like Resogun and like some of those like really arcade shooters that came out for PS4 and PS3 and stuff. But they released a statement a couple years ago saying, "Hey, we love arcade games. We love making them, but you guys don't buy them, so we have to do something different." Which is a really weird statement. Like it's a strange way to approach it, saying like we want to keep doing this, but if you don't buy that, we can't. So we're shifting. So they're making this kind of this first person game where
third person.
Is it a third person?
It says right there.
The third person shooter rogue like hybrid has stuck on an alien planet that transforms each time you die. So again, another Edge of Tomorrow type kind of situation, which I think is pretty cool. But they have a good pedigree in terms of the stuff they did. This is just very different from before. Then, of course, everyone's favorite game, Bug Snacks. Crazy, insane game. So, Jeremy, do you remember Octodad? Do you remember Octodad? It's this game. It was a ridiculous game where you play as an octopus, trying to pretend to be a human, and you like have to like control, and you're like flopping around, and it's really stupid. It's really dumb, but everyone thought it was ridiculous. But it's really funny. So this is a game where you play as creatures, and the food is also bugs, but you eat them, and then you become the thing you eat. So at one point, a guy he's like, character comes in, he's like, I dropped the lantern with my weenie arms because he has hamburgers or wieners for arms.
Because he ate a hot dog
earlier, and he dropped something. And like it's really weird. And there's like a whole song. It's a very strange thing. So
cool. And
like the game is called Octodad Dadliest Catch, which is
it's insane.
Yeah. Hitman 3. That looks. I don't know. I haven't played any of the Hitman games, but I appreciate them for what they are. Looks pretty cool. The whole trailer is like you infiltrating the Burj Khalifa, so like you like climbing up the side, Mission Impossible style.
Sweet.
Looks pretty cool. Ghostwire Tokyo. I didn't really understand that. Jet the Far Shore. This looks kind of cool. It says Jet the Far Shore is a bit of an enigma. That's to be expected from Super Brothers, the studio behind Sword and Sorcery. The new game follows Me, a jet scout who descends from a massive starship to explore a mythic ocean planet and discover the source of an interstellar transmission. But set to the sound design and compositions of SCNTFC. I don't know, Scientific. The artist behind the soundtracks for After Party, Oxenfree, and Jenny Leclue, Detective U. Jet the Far Shore promises an audiovisual and vibrationally tactile experience.
That actually does sound kind of interesting.
Kind of cool.
I love the idea of an alien ocean planet.
Yeah.
Like it sounds both
like Camino.
Terrifying and intriguing.
Right. Kenna, the Bridge of Spirits, that looked weird. Little Devil Inside also looked really. This Little Devil Inside very stylistic, but like pretty dark. Yeah. At one point, you're like, it looks like a cartoon, but you start like cutting through things and like blood starts flying everywhere. It's really weird. Strange combination of stuff. Pragmata. This one looks freaking weird, man. So Pragmata.
I've said that about everything so far.
This one's crazy. Another. This is from Capcom. We don't know very much. The game's trailer shows a spaceman protecting the world and a little girl from otherworldly forces, and the characters walking through a desolate, futuristic streets. It looks like something Hideo Kojima would concoct. And then at one point, the gravity reverses and they get like sucked to the moon through space. Yeah. It's crazy.
Oh man.
So yeah, that's kind of the stuff. And then obviously, Dan, your favorite, which would be.
Just gonna talk about Horizon.
Horizon, yeah. It looks really it looks dope. So it's.
Hey, I honestly would. I'm interested in the concept. I'd give it another shot with the sequel. Like, it was the gameplay that took me out of that experience. It was just clunky gameplay.
You didn't. I think you didn't give it enough time. Like, I think it becomes much more strategic in your the way you have to you shoot these tie down arrows that tie the creature down, and you take out different components and use the components against them. It looks cool. The story's great. They head out, there's a version of you see the what the hell is the bridge in San Francisco? The Golden Gate Bridge. So you see a rundown version of that. There's a giant snapping turtle type creature, kind of like from God of War. Similar. That giant turtle thing that stands up in God of War, remember? Underneath where what's her name? Her little hut. Turns out she's. You don't remember this?
Giant turtle.
It was like a giant turtle. thing that her house was built in.
Oh, in the new God of War.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah. Not in the old ones.
Okay,
Yeah.
got it.
Anyway, it looks really cool. Jeremy, any thoughts on any of these games? Anything that's like sticks out to you other than Spider-Man or not even Resident Evil, but
I can't remember off the top of my head, but like I said, I wish there was more gameplay rather than just
CG stuff.
Trailers. Like cause like for me, Horizon, I haven't played the original. I know that a lot of people like it. Some people don't, but to me, it was just like a CG video of that game again or that world. Didn't really do anything for me.
I think my understanding is that a lot of it is in-game engine stuff. Maybe not of gameplay, but it's in engine. Yeah, I don't think it's like we're being kind of deceived by how the games are going to look, so much as like just we're not seeing the HUD and like the specifics of the gameplay. I think we did see that with Ratchet and Clank, which is I think probably why we got excited about that. But I don't know. Any other thoughts on this PS5 stuff, just overall?
Yeah, we just need to see more from these games is all really.
I want to know which games are at launch.
I think like they're definitely like in the forefront of people's minds and excitement, I think, over Xbox right now, even though Xbox is kind of releasing stuff first. And I think it was a bold choice to really differentiate themselves in terms of the look of the box from Xbox.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And I think it's going to pay off even if we're not fans of the aesthetic of it. I think those people are still going to buy it.
Yeah.
And with customization, I think it might grow on people and look cool next to their TVs.
Yeah. I guess the one thing about it being so giant is that it's like it's not going to fit in most entertainment units the way the other consoles do.
Yeah.
So they didn't really think about that, I guess. It has to go beside the TV, not under.
Yeah, I don't know how that. I think they want you to. They always show you these consoles standing up vertically for some reason.
Yeah.
But then no one ever actually does that. So, I don't even know. They might have done the same thing with the PS4. They might have been originally standing up vertically, and then we only ever used it.
I've never seen a
horizontally.
PS4 standing up.
Yeah, and I only ever saw one PS2 in my entire life standing up vertically. So,
and it was mine.
It was yours.
It was mine.
So like, I'm definitely gonna put this horizontally, and it looks like it's really long. So I don't think even in the entertainment unit we have here, I don't think it would fit. Like it's. Yeah. It's something. It's several inches longer than the PS4. I don't know. I'm not excited about what it looks like, but I am excited about the games. I really, at this point, I need to know the price. I have to know the price, and I have to know the release date and which games are at launch. And also, I want a new Battlefield game. I'm ready for the next Battlefield.
Well, Spider-Man's at least I think is a launch game.
Yeah, I think that makes sense too because, like you said, it's in the yeah. Speaking of Battlefield, Battlefield 6.
There's that new Star Wars game being announced tomorrow. So
oh yeah,
Rogue Squadron.
Right. Well, it's not Rogue Squadron.
It might as well be
just Squadron.
It might as well be called Rogue. But he's right. It might as well be called Rogue Squadron. I was reading some tweets the other day about how was it? What's the one for GameCube? It was Rogue Squadron, Rebel something. You guys remember what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
That game looks better than some games that have come out recently. It aged really well from a visuals perspective. Yeah. That game is a great game. It's a great game.
I played with my niece and nephews probably less than a year ago.
Yeah,
I just wanted to show them some of the levels you can't really get in any other Star Wars game currently. The trench run and stuff like that. It's just cool to experience those.
You think that's just what this game is going to be again?
No, this one's literally called Squadrons, right? I think it's going to have a heavy multiplayer component, and there's going to be it's all about just forming your own squadron, I think, and going head to head.
Do you think there's a story mode here?
I doubt it. I don't know. Maybe.
I
can't see it being too extravagant unless it's just it's Rogue Squadron, a reinvention of that.
I wouldn't put it past EA to just rip that off and just make it hey, but and then there's Y-wings and X-wings in that. Doesn't look like there's any prequel stuff or sequel stuff, which is also kind of disappointing, especially if it's a multiplayer focused game.
If it's a multiplayer game, which I assume that it would be as well, that'll come. That'll be included eventually.
You need I think right now especially people are really clamoring for more prequel stuff. So I think having like the ARC 170s and the other kind of older Y-wings and stuff like that would be fun versus the droid.
The Nubian.
the Nubian fighter. That actually, I don't need the Nubian fighter. I think it's kind of a dumb look. I think it looks stupid. But I don't know. I want more Star Wars games. I want more story-driven Star Wars games. I think Battlefront was really good. Battlefront 2 became very good. Again, you'll get to see eventually one day when you have enough room on your hard drive. Yeah. But I don't think I need more just like multiplayer focused only Star Wars games.
I'm gonna wait to see what they say or what they reveal, because I mean, like, we're playing online, like we're playing Call of Duty lots online, right? Like lots of people are playing online. I think it might be refreshing to kind of enter into that online arena where it's not just like you're shooting things, but I just feel like it's going to feel a lot different with the maneuverability and the gameplay and the excitement of like flying with your friends or whatever, and whatever strategies they can kind of implement where you feel like you're an actual squadron having each other's backs and taking on other squads. I think that could be cool.
Yeah, because that's something we really haven't done before, right? Like, we have Battlefield games where there's vehicle combat, but really we're not playing it that way. If this was a game that was designed, like you had, a squad leader and wingmen, and like you actually had to, stay in formation and stuff like that, like it could be fun to try to.
I think it sounds more. It doesn't sound as much fun as you're making it seem, but like also like there is a really great space combat in Battlefront 2. Like it's underrated. I think it's like
it's all right,
pretty good,
but I think that they could definitely be improved upon.
Do you think it's just the same tech that they're going to be like borrowing from for that type of?
I think very likely. I wish it weren't, but it's very likely that they would.
But I don't think it's not from the same studio. So Visceral made that stuff. I think it was Visceral that made the space combat side of Battlefront 2. It wasn't even DICE. So this isn't. I don't know who it is who's making it off the top of my head, but I don't know. I guess they borrow stuff back and forth inside EA, but if it's just another version of that, like stretched out, I think you have to include story. Otherwise, it's not. I don't think it's deep enough for it to be its own standalone game. Otherwise, anyway, we'll find out tomorrow. Okay. Any other final thoughts? Oh crap! Looks like we lost part of the recording. My favorite. Any final? Yeah. I'll get it off of. I'll get it off of something else later. Okay, well, on that note, we'll wrap it up there. Follow us on Twitter at TowerBabblecast, Facebook.com/TowerBabblecast. And we missed this. This is half an hour ago. Or wait, no. Just now. So we had a question from Super Nerd Quiz Clow. Clo. What's the podcast topic? Right now it's games. It's game stuff.
We just ran
PS5. Yeah. Anyway, follow us on Twitch for all of our live streams for when they work. It's been giving me a headache lately. Yeah. But we'll be back with more podcast stuff soon. We'll be doing, again, obviously, our movie club, patreon.com/TowerBabblecast for that. And stay tuned to our Twitter at TowerBabblecast as well for more updates on when we're doing new stuff. So we'll talk to you again soon. And yeah.